All right, and now we move to the co-main event of the evening in the UFC's lightweight division between Paddy the Baddy Pimblett, who comes into the fight with a record of 19 victories and 3 defeats, going up against Jared Flash Gordon, who comes in with an identical record of 19 victories and 5 defeats. Look, I understand why this is the co-main event because it's Paddy the Baddy. It's Paddy Pimblett. Like, of course he's going to be the co-main event. You know, he makes a lot of money. He's got a big fan base. He's got a lot of people behind him, does Paddy Pimblett. But should this be the co-main event? No. I mean, realistically, if I'm going through the card right now, I think you could have put Till and Duplessis as the co-main event. You could have put Mitchell and Topuria as the co-main event. But I understand why Paddy the Baddy got the co-main event slot. I mean, he's got the big fan base. It's going to be in Vegas. You're going to hear, "Oh, Paddy the Baddy. Oh, Paddy the Baddy." Like, that's going to be what you're going to hear for this fight throughout the crowd, during the fight, before the fight, throughout the entire night. That's what people are going to be chanting. But Jared Gordon is no joke. Like, this is not a walk in the park for Paddy Pimblett. This is not, he's going to go in there, knock him out. It's going to be easy. Paddy's not going to take any damage. Like, this isn't an easy fight, realistically or stylistically, for Paddy Pimblett. Like, Gordon has fought a lot of guys. He's beat guys that a lot of people thought were going to walk right through him. Like his last fight with Leonardo Santos, like the fight with Joe Solecki. I mean, I picked against Gordon in both of those fights, and he proved me wrong. Just his gritty style, his forward pressure, his counter ability, his grappling, the transitions he uses on the floor. Like, Jared Gordon's a good grappler, but people don't give him credit because he's not the most popular. Like, the fan base is all going to be on the side of Paddy Pimblett. But, you know, realistic mixed martial arts game, like, Gordon's not an easy fight for anybody. Like, is he the best in the division? No. Like, do I think he's going to be a champion? No. Do I think it's a favorable matchup for Paddy? Yeah, I would say so. But do I think it's an easy fight? No, absolutely not. I mean, you look at Jared Gordon, 19-5. He's got 8 wins by way of finish, 6 by KO, TKO, 2 by submission, and then 11 victories by way of decision. With his losses, he's been knocked out in 4 out of those 5 losses and submitted in 1. So all 5 of his losses do come by way of finish. If it goes to the scorecards, you know, he's always got his hand raised. 11 wins by way of decision out of 19 wins. You look at his last few fights, he's got that decision victory over Leonardo Santos. Prior to that, he lost to Grant Dawson via third-round rear naked choke submission. Before that, he won a split decision over Joe Solecki. I backed Solecki heavy in that fight, and he was able to just pressure him, you know, survive, scramble, continue to out-position Joe Solecki the longer the fight went. First round, he got out-grappled easy. Joe Solecki out-grappled him easily. But the longer the fight went, the pace, the cardio, the pressure of Jared Gordon just got to Joe Solecki, and he was able to out-position him and control him on the mat. Prior to that, he had a decision victory over Danny Chavez, a decision victory over Chris Fishgold. Then he lost to the former lightweight champion, one of the best lightweights in the world, and Charles Oliveira got knocked out in the first round. Decision win over Dan Murray. Prior to that, a knockout loss to Joaquin Silva, a TKO loss to Diego Ferreira, which doesn't look terrible. Decision win over Hakran Diaz, a TKO in round 2 over Michael Quinones. Prior to that, it was a decision win over Bill Elgio. That was back in CFFC at CFFC 63. But since he's been in the UFC, I mean, his losses have come to Diego Ferreira, Joaquin Silva, Charles Oliveira, and Grant Dawson. Like, the guy doesn't lose to slouches. I mean, you know, he beats a lot of good guys, but a loss to the champion, a former champion in Oliveira, not a bad loss. A loss to that up-and-coming prospect in Grant Dawson, not a bad loss. I mean, the loss to Diego Ferreira. Ferreira's a great lightweight. He's not a top contender, but he's definitely up there in the upper echelon of the 155-pound division. Like, this isn't an easy fight. Gordon has good grappling. He's got good wrestling ability, good takedowns, good top control. Like, if Paddy winds up on the bottom, I do think Gordon does have the potential to control him. You go and look at Paddy Pimblett, 19-3 overall as a professional mixed martial artist. Out of those 19 victories, 15 wins come by way of finish. He's got 6 KO, TKOs, and 9 submissions. 4 wins coming by way of decision. Out of his 3 losses, he's been submitted once. The other 2 losses came via decision. But lately in his career, I mean, even before the UFC, he's currently on a 5-fight win streak. 3 of those wins coming inside the UFC. Prior to that, it was a submission victory over David Martinez at Cage Warriors 122 in the first round, and then a TKO in the first round over Decky Dalton at Cage Warriors 113. Then he lost that decision to Soren Bach. That was back in September of 2018. But in the UFC, he's got a knockout victory in the first round over Luigi Vendramini. Vendramini cracked him with that stance switch right outside low kick into southpaw, the left hook behind it, cracked Paddy Pimblett, landed flush right on the chin, spun his head around, wobbled him, took him down, but then Paddy came back and ended up catching Luigi Vendramini with a long straight right hand, a left hook, a right hook, a left hook, a right hook up against the cage, and knocked him out in the first round. So Paddy can survive those hard, battles. He can survive being hurt. He can survive unadvantageous positions and come back and find a way to win. He won in the first round via rear naked choke over Rodrigo Vargas. That was in his second fight in the UFC. And then most recently in his last fight, he submits Jordan Levitt in the second round via rear naked choke. So 1 knockout and 2 submission victories for Paddy Pimblett in his 3 fights in the UFC. He probably should have gotten a bigger step up in competition. Yes, I would agree with that. I think Paddy the Baddy should have gotten a bigger step up in competition, but this is a good fight for Paddy Pimblett. It's not like a terrible matchup. It's not a trash can. They're not giving him an awful fight. Do I think Jared Flash Gordon is a co-main event style of fighter? No. Do I think this should be the co-main event? No, but like I said, I understand why, because of Paddy Pimblett's following, his fan base. Like, everybody's going to be tuning into this fight for Paddy Pimblett. But when it comes down to the breakdown, I could see Gordon getting some takedowns. I could see him controlling on the floor for a little bit. But I think even if it's on the mat and with Gordon in that advantageous position, in the top position, controlling him, I think eventually Paddy's going to look for arm bars. He's going to look to sweep Jared Gordon. He's going to look to take the back. And I just think he's going to out-scramble Jared Gordon, even if it goes into the grappling. I think, yes, Gordon is the better wrestler. He's the better takedown artist. And, 8 out of 10 times the wrestler is going to beat the jiu-jitsu artist. But I think these are those 2 out of 10 where the jiu-jitsu artist can beat the wrestler. Like, Gordon's a good wrestler. He has good takedowns, good scrambling ability, good ability to remain on top even in, wild scrambles. But Paddy Pimblett is so much more of a submission threat. I feel like he can lock up arm bars, which can cause Gordon to pull out and give him, a disadvantageous position. He can give up his back. I think in one of those scrambles, Paddy Pimblett is going to find the back of Jared Gordon, and I think he's going to get another rear naked choke submission. I think it's submission here for Paddy. I could see Gordon getting caught on the feet and knocked out. Like I said, in every one of his losses, he's been finished. He has been knocked out before, got knocked out by Charles Oliveira. He got submitted by Grant Dawson. He's been knocked out before. I think Paddy with his long, rangy shots, I think that long right hand, the left hook behind it, the front kicks up the middle to the body, all the long, rangy shots of Paddy Pimblett are going to be used in this fight. He's going to be using the front kicks. He's going to be using the jabs, the crosses, the long, straight shots to try to beat Gordon, who likes to pressure forward, who likes to make it dirty, who likes to get into that single collar clinch, into the double unders, land some short shots and then rip you to the body and up top to the head. He's got to make it a dirty fight. Like, Gordon cannot fight this technical and tactical because of the long range and distance of a Paddy Pimblett. Like, Gordon and Paddy are pretty close in terms of the height, 5'9" to 5'10", but Pimblett's going to be coming into this fight with a 5-inch reach advantage, a 73-inch reach to a 68-inch reach for Gordon. If Gordon's on the outside, he's getting picked apart with front kicks. He's getting hit with round kicks, outside low kicks, straight 1-2s right down the middle. He's going to be getting caught with uppercuts up the middle. I think Paddy's going to use that double jab and follow up with the rear uppercut, kind of like a Renato Moicano. I think the uppercuts, the front kicks, all the stuff up the center channel is going to work really well for Paddy Pimblett, but I think eventually one of those long right hands is going to catch Gordon on the chin. He's going to panic wrestle. Paddy's going to spin around, take the back, get the hooks in, and get the rear naked choke submission. I'm going to go with Paddy the Baddy Pimblett to win this fight via a second round rear naked choke submission. I think Gordon's a tough opponent. I don't think Gordon should be taken lightly and written off completely. There is a possibility that he is able to out-scramble Paddy. He is able to wind up on top, is able to pressure him up against the cage and make this a boring fight and potentially get a decision. But I can't see this fight going the distance. And if I can't see the fight going the distance, then I have to side with Paddy Pimblett here, because not only has, Gordon been finished a bunch of times in the UFC, all of his losses come by way of finish. He doesn't lose decisions. And I can't see Paddy losing to Jared Gordon. And I think he just finally gives up his back and gets submitted. I could see Paddy knocking him out, like I said, with the long straight shots, the 1-2s down the middle. I think can catch Gordon on the chin. I think that's actually what happens. He gets caught on the chin, wobbled, panic wrestles. Paddy takes the neck, spins the back, takes the neck, put the hooks in, and gets the rear naked choke. So my pick is the -190 favorite in Paddy the Baddy Pimblett to defeat Jared Flash Gordon via a second round rear naked choke submission. When it comes to breaking down the fight, from a betting perspective, I could see people jumping on the dog and Jared Gordon because of his experience in the UFC, because he's been around for a long time. But I think Paddy Pimblett on the money line is a great parlay piece. I think he might be, pushed a little bit harder after this fight, and the line might not be as low as this. And this isn't even a low line. Like, it says -190 here, but I'm pretty sure he's like -210, -220 on some lines at this point. So even that, like, you're not going to get it much lower than that in his next few fights. So I think if you're going to jump on a money line bet for Paddy, this is going to be the spot to do it. I like Paddy Pimblett on the money line. I like fight does not go the distance, depending on what the line is put at. I think fight doesn't go the distance or Pimblett on the money line are your best bet. I also think Pimblett inside the distance is a really solid bet, and those would probably be the top three I would give you. And then for a juicy bet, kind of like the last fight we talked about, it would be Paddy Pimblett to win via submission. I picked him to submit Jordan Levitt. I actually bet on him to beat Levitt by submission, and he got it done, but it was paired with some other stuff, so I didn't get the win that night. But I think a submission is definitely live here for Paddy, especially with his submission attempts and his scrambling ability. He's very good off his back. He's very intelligent, especially if he has his feet close to the cage. He can kick off and, shrimp his hips and move in an advantageous position, even if he's on the bottom, potentially locking up an armbar or a triangle. But I think he finds the back and takes the neck of Jared Gordon. So I like the submission prop for Paddy Pimblett as well. So if I'm going to give you the top three bets for this fight, it's going to be Pimblett on the money line. Fight does not go the distance, and then Paddy Pimblett to win via submission. I think those are your best bets for this fight overall. But my overall pick is Paddy the Baddy Pimblett to defeat Jared Flash Gordon via second round rear naked choke.